Okay, I think we should just talk and pretend the
Yeah, we are.
camera's not there, like we always do.
Yeah.
Because the whole reason we're doing this is because for what, at least probably almost 10 years, because you're almost 25.
I feel like it's been like longer
For
than
almost, probably since you've been, probably maybe 17. Junior year of high school, probably.
that. Yep.
We have these morning conversations, or actually not just morning when you went to college, but morning conversations where we just talk for sometimes 20 minutes, sometimes 3 hours about just life and
Everything.
existence and
Crazy
yeah.
shit. Crazy shit.
Yeah.
Stuff that we would never be able to like
Yeah, and then
repeat ever.
Yeah.
So every time we ever talked about it,
yeah, we'd
we'd
like,
just be
dang.
like, fuck.
Why
We didn't
didn't
record
well,
that.
I say dang. You say
I say
that
fuck.
word.
She said, She's
Why
a
did
doctor.
we record that?
She's an MD. I have SHITTY. You know, I'm shitty.
No, like none of us know anything.
Yeah, I feel like once I started watching the Cosmos show,
Oh yeah,
and then
that is when that started.
I started becoming obsessed with space and like how deep everything was. And then I don't remember what. Well, we used to be obsessed with spirituality forever.
Still am.
Well, I mean, yeah. Well, but how did that even start?
My obsession with spirituality?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Probably whenever I was in, I can't remember if it was college or med school, but I think it was med school, when we were in a psychology class and the professor went around the room and asked us to talk about one, actually it was college, and we were studying afterlife. That was a psychology class, and we were studying the afterlife and the science behind it, if there was any or not. And we had to go around the room and talk about one thing that we regretted in our life, that growing up. And I can't remember why we had to do that, but I remember there were only like 10 of us in the class, maybe a little more. And I could not think of anything at all.
I remember
What did
this
you
story.
regret growing up? And they prompted us to think about things like your relationship with your mom, your dad, you know, going to the college you're going to, whatever it was, siblings. And I could not think of anything. And I was like panicking because I didn't want to look like a fraud. Like, oh, my life is perfect. I don't regret anything. And so I was like really, it was almost my time, and I was trying to think of like, what can I say? I don't want to be like, I don't regret anything. So I thought, well, I kind of regret that I know nothing about religion, like nothing at all. And so, and my parents...
Which is funny because you went to a Catholic school.
Yeah, true, for
And
1
that
year.
is probably why you...
For 1 year only.
That's probably why you thought that way, because you were like shamed.
Oh, yeah, why I was like, oh my gosh. I don't know. I think I would have liked to know the stories in the Bible, and like people talk about Cain and Abel, and other than Adam and Eve, I knew nothing.
Yeah.
And so I remember saying that out loud, like my mom and dad, well, especially my mom, would take us to different churches, you know, maybe once a month, or maybe on holidays. We were like, what's it called, Cheesters? You go on Christmas and Easter.
Cheester,
But
yeah.
it wasn't that. We would go like once a month or so, but we'd go to hear the music, or we'd go because it was, you know, someone was playing the electric guitar, or we'd go just to hear a different sermon. But it was all Christianity. We didn't have anything Buddhist or anything like that in our small town. But yeah, and actually growing up, I thought that was fun. But then when it came down to like, what do you regret in your life? That's kind of what I spit out. Like, I regret that I know
That's
nothing.
so funny.
And then I thought about that a lot later, because I definitely didn't regret it. Definitely.
That's what I mean, is like, it's not something you actually regretted. It's just
No,
something
but I just
you
had to like
didn't
come
have
up with something.
You
I'm
didn't
like, I
have
know
like,
nothing.
because you probably are like, because the way we are is we always are like so in depth with everything. Like we just want to get like the deepest version of it.
Yeah.
And you growing up, you went to a Catholic school where you didn't know shit about Catholicism, and people were shaming you in that school. And then you grow up and you still don't know anything about it. And you're like, well, I kind of went to church before, but like not really. because like we didn't have an actual legit, like we weren't Catholic.
We didn't belong to anything.
No. She's like, shit, maybe I should like think of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then
that probably is why.
Yeah.
And I keep thinking of my best friend Nancy and how she knows everything about the Bible, but I didn't know her then, so it wasn't from her. But I love that about her. But I think I thought about that a lot later. That I actually brought that up, and like that was kind of cool. That I really didn't. I had what my friend Mike Quinn would say, a clean slate. But in talking about going to a Catholic school, that was only 4th grade. So I wasn't even baptized or anything. So and so for a Catholic, little tiny Catholic school in Johnstown to let me and my brother and my sister in was a big deal. But we had a huge flood here, and so actually that was
the 70s.
The flood was, I was really little, but it wiped out a lot of the schools downtown. So this Catholic school was kind of what was left, and it was like one room for each class. So one room for 4th grade, one for 5th, and one for 6th, or for my brother, my sister, and I.
And you were the only Catholic people in the whole school? I mean, non-Catholic?
Yeah. So it was this dilapidated little, it was totally destroyed in the flood, with the exception of these few rooms and obviously the church. But Richland was the school I went to was on strike, and they were on strike till like the end of September. We were going to end up going to school till all through the summer. So my parents, that's why they were like, we're just going to put you somewhere where you can be done and we can enjoy our summer together. So that's how we ended up in a Catholic school. But I remember in the Catholic school, I wasn't shamed at all. At least I didn't have the perception of it. I was not cognizant at all that I was being ashamed. So I really don't think that way at all, except that, again, I was the only one that wasn't Catholic, the only one that wasn't baptized. So I had original sin because I was never baptized. So you come into the world in Catholicism, I don't know if this holds true today, with a sin, and that's taken away when you're baptized. It's called original sin. So I was kind of the spectacle in the room so Kelly has original sin because
how many people were in that class?
Probably 30.
Really?
There's only one class.
And
for
they
fourth
literally
grade.
said you're
And so
the
these
one
are all
person.
little 4th graders, so they're just learning. But the nun, the teacher, was like, so Kelly's an example of original sin because she was never baptized. And then when we go to
like
church,
a big deal.
I know. And the coolest thing in the world was, and I credit my parents for this, was that I was like, they're clueless, because any God that I would love knows I'm a 4th grader. Like, I'm a little kid. I'm a baby when I'm getting baptized. It's not my choice. My parents chose not to do that. So, like, that's stupid.
Isn't that so
I'm going to go to
weird,
hell because I have original sin unless I get baptized. And so even as a 4th grader, I was wise enough, thanks to my parents, I think, and being the way I grew up, to feel like they're low. They don't have it right here. So I never felt shamed. I just felt like they really didn't know what they were talking about.
That's so crazy. To think that you actually came up with that on your own.
I know.
As a 4th grader.
I know.
Because, everyone's always like, whenever you take someone out, if you're a little kid and there's a big group of people and you take one kid out and you do anything to that one person, unless they're like super outgoing, like one out of like 15 kids are like super outgoing, make a friend anywhere they go. But most kids are just shy. And if you pluck them out and you're like, this is the one person that's bad, like that's traumatic.
I know.
As a young person.
I know.
And for you to be like, I'm not.
I think it really was just a turning point in my life that I didn't even know at the time.
Yeah.
That would, teach me a lot about why I delved into spirituality and why I feel that we're all so unique and different. And your spiritual belief system is so personal. And so, because you asked me what got me into spirituality, I think. That's how this all started. But you know what else is crazy is so every Wednesday we would go to church. So as part of Catholic school, you attend Mass.
You can go to communion.
No, I couldn't go to communion. So again, I was the only one. And so this would be true for my brother and my sister. And they're both fine too. They never even thought anything of any of this. But I'd be the only one sitting in the church when everyone went up to communion, because I wasn't baptized, so I couldn't go to communion, and I couldn't go to confession. So I wasn't allowed to tell my sins to the priest. Thank God, because I didn't even know what a sin
Yeah,
was.
literally. He's like, what'd you do bad? You're like, my dad ate a worm. That's like the shit you would put.
I fed the cat on the couch. I remember that was a big deal. One time I got in trouble for that. That would be my sin. I put the cat food on the couch. But yeah, so I think that started it, and I didn't even recognize it till I was in med school or college, whenever that class was. And then I thought back to that time, and I'm like, wow, I'm really grateful for that, because I just had the deep intuition that it really had nothing to do with me at all.
That's crazy.
Or my parents.
It's so funny how there's like there's Catholicism. I mean, obviously every religion is the same basically, but it's like that's so clearly like teaching like exclusionism at a super young age. It's just so clear.
Sad.
It's just like, she didn't do what we did. It doesn't mean anything really, but she didn't do it, so she's not part of us. So we're gonna make sure everyone knows that she's not part of us, because whenever you do that, you create the two tribes, and then whenever you got two tribes to fight each other, then that's whenever shit gets fun for people that want to be in power, because obviously the best way to be in power is to divide, because when you divide, then you conquer. So it's like, it's so weird that you were fourth grade and they're doing that. I mean, obviously that's like, I feel like nowadays that's like unheard of, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, but we're in such a bubble, like we don't engage in any religious things really. So we don't know exactly what happens anymore. I mean, obviously so many people are still shamed in all these religions, but it's kind of crazy to think that in fourth grade they're doing that, and then your initial reaction is like, God loves people. God does not hate anyone. He doesn't exclude anything. There is no reason at all, like, because you learned probably what love was from your mom and dad.
Exactly.
And that is like the biggest teacher, obviously.
Yeah.
And just knowing how to just be compassionate, care about things, like treat people right.
Yeah,
all
which
that
is
shit.
exactly why I was like, when they were like, what regrets do you have? I was like,
Yeah.
nothing.
Which is another lesson that your parents probably taught you, because to not have regrets is really important. You should see everything always as like a lesson, or like if you made a wrong decision, you made the right decision really, because the wrong decision is what made you learn from it in the first place. So it's like all the wrong decisions that we ever made are just as important as the right decisions we made, if not more important, because they show us what the right decisions should be that we want to make. So it's like, yeah.
And how many people carry that to their grave? The decisions that they made that they have regrets for, and if you read the top 50 regrets of the dying, or you know what I see in hospice is really digging deep to find what those regrets are, and then letting them go and learning that we are humans. We're here to make mistakes, just like you said, and learn from our mistakes, and then we're successful.
Yeah.
And so, that is very true. I don't think my parents ever said don't have any regrets, but it's just the way they lived their life.
Yeah.
And deeply spiritual. So I don't want to rip on religion, because you can be deeply spiritual and religious, or you can be deeply spiritual and not religious at all. I mean, we've had a million talks about this, but yeah, I would say my parents were probably the most spiritual people I've perhaps ever encountered.
Which is so weird, because they are just so non-conventionally.
Yeah.
Like, they are, you would never think in a million years that either of them have ever prayed or done anything like that at all. Like, never. You would never think that. But they, like, your dad obviously meditated his entire life, and his whole goal basically is to just like be in nature, immerse yourself fully into it, and then you just do that forever, every day, because it's his favorite thing.
Too.
All they want to do is just be outside and just like
surround
be immersed.
yourself with animals and love, and you know, all we did was go on hikes, and I'd have my cat in my backpack, and that's so true. I'm really lucky.
It's like I feel like religion is a way to, like, because everyone has points of your life. Like, do you ever like just randomly, like, it's just like a random day, and you're just like, you know what, I'm gonna do that one thing that I haven't done in the last year, like clean up that one
like
thing.
wash the windows like I did yesterday for the first time.
In like 10 years, you like wash the windows in the kitchen.
And I'm like, wow, that wasn't bad. That was kind of fun, actually.
I know, right? And when you do it, you're like, holy shit, that's so great. You know, I mean, obviously that's like a dumb example, but I'm thinking of it in more of like, you know, I want to meditate all the time, but I never do. And then you do it one time and you're like, oh, wow, like if I could just do this every fucking day, it'd be so nice. But the problem is that we rely on that random motivation. You know what I mean? Like we sit around and we're just like, we'll wait and wait and wait until like something in our brain and body says like, do it now. And it's like you wait till the last straw and then your body's like, okay, you got to meditate or you're going to have like a mental breakdown. And then you do it and you're like, wow, it's so amazing. But the problem with that is that we wait for that motivation instead of like having discipline. You know what I mean? Like we don't wake up every day and we're like, I want to have disciplined practice where I meditate every single day so I don't have to rely on my motivation to randomly pop up to give me that like feeling that I need to meditate. So it's kind of like with churches too, because
True. That's
I know when
point.
when I wake up in the morning and I, you know, read a book that's inspirational or I like listen to something related to trading that's inspirational or whatever, I'm way happier. Because it's like you seek inspiration and then that inspiration gives you like the ability to have discipline and you're like, I want to, you know, see that every day. So church is like the same thing. It's like, it like gives you that, it's like seeking inspiration every week to know that you can make it through. It gives you that motivation.
You get up, you get dressed up, you go there, you go through, which can be very, very meditative. You know, the songs, if it's Catholic, it's, you know, doing the rosary or the stations or whatever that is.
It could literally be any weird task, anything.
Yeah.
But it honestly does not matter at all, whatever you're doing, as long as you have a group of people together and like you don't want to go. That's kind of important, I think, too. It's like you kind of want to not do it because then it makes it good. Because if you don't want to go to church and then you go to church, you never, like, I don't like church at all. I hate church. Like, I hated it. Every time we ever went growing up, I hated it. But you never leave church mad. It's weird. I mean, you can, obviously. But most of the time you leave and you're like, you know, happy for some reason.
Yeah, that group energy.
And it's the group energy. And it's just like, you know, you went there because you didn't want to go. And you seeked out that inspiration.
And perhaps made your mom happy because you went.
Well, yeah.
Because the whole family's together.
Yeah. and you got all the group energy of everyone else that's doing the exact same thing. Nobody else wants to go to church, but you all went. And you all like sat together with each other for a reason. It doesn't matter what the reason is, but you all sat there for a certain period of time that's not fun to anybody, but you just chose to do it. And that act of having that like ritualistic thing happen all the time is like clearly powerful.
Yeah, and I think that the key ingredient too is that connection.
Yeah.
So even if you sat there and you weren't resonating with the message, which I very often do. Yeah. So if I enter a church and,
Joy, come here.
And there's, you know, they're talking about biblical stories or whatever, it often really touches me to my core. Yeah. But so I think that energy too.
But was that always like that?
Yeah.
Like you were always that way?
Yeah.
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 Even because in 4th grade you were like,
yeah, but
you found that little piece that actually was important.
But I didn't acknowledge that till way later, 20 years later. But I've always felt a really strong connection to God, whatever that is. It's weird because I still have that. I don't like Bible thumpers and I don't like people that push their belief system on you. So even the term God to me is like, you know, I don't really want to, I don't, but that is the word for the life, the force that I feel deeply connected to. Yeah. And I feel that connection. It's exactly what you're saying with the group energy. Sitting in church, which, you know, we go a few times a year.
Literally, we haven't been there in like 3 years, but we used to go, church Easter.
Yeah, before you guys all went Christmas, to college Easter. And stuff. But yeah, for me, it's really connecting. It's a reminder with a, you know, capital R. Like I always think Ram Dass, love, serve, remember. Remember is that key piece. Remember that connection, and that's that little reminder of that connection, which everyone in that building might be really different in what that connection means to them. But kind of like you said, that group energy just like brings you all together.
Joy, come here, girl. Come here.
I think they're having fun.
Come on.
Come here, Mar.
We're going to hear it on the mic. We're going to hear, me and Mom are going to be talking, and it's going to be, Joy, come here, baby.
That's our life.
Joy,
That's
come on.
the
Come on.
way it is.
Come on. Come on. Joy.
Hi, Mar. Come here, Mar.
Hey, girl.
Come here.
Come here. Come on.
This is Marley.
What?
He's the newest addition to the Worship clan. This is
Yeah.
Ivana. She's shy.
Ivana normally lives, I have an apartment above our garage, and there's a house over there that my mom lives in, and
That you grew up in.
that I grew up in, and this is where she lives, and him. So this is her domain. This whole area, this is her place.
Joy.
So she gets pissed off anytime anyone ever wants to do anything in here. So these dogs are just moving around, and she's just growling all
Look
day.
at Joy.
just
She's
pissed.
eating up the attention.
She's probably staring right into the camera. She's
She
like,
is.
I'm fucking famous now. Fuck.
So yeah, Joy's not real happy about these new additions into her home space.
No. I was
Oh,
gonna
he
say
wants to
something.
play.
Don't let them play,
Why? They can play.
because it's gonna be loud. I just know it.
That's all right.
Joy loves tap dancing on the wood.
Marley bounces out the door.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because it's like, I'm trying to think of like where I started with spirituality. Because I think, I know, I remember when we would go to church and I was young, I would listen like a little bit and I would always be like really intrigued. And then I remember the one time we went to church, they were talking about God, and I think it like you turn like 8 years old and you can finally question like where did God come from, because you don't even like fathom like God, because they always say God made Jesus or whatever, and then God came out of like thin air basically, and then I remember like I was like probably 8 or 9 years old or whatever, and I was like, wait, God came from where? And I would always just think in my head, I would think of like an empty space and then just God like appearing. And then that's just like what I would think of in my head. And then I was like, that makes no sense at all. Like that cannot be true. God doesn't just like appear somewhere. And then I was like, I questioned that probably for whatever, like
Till Cosmos.
a minute. And then, yeah. And then, what was the next thing that happened?
That's about when you started having your...
Oh yeah, I used to always have like little dreams in the middle of the night where I would like sleepwalk and walk around and just like try to make sense of them. Oh man, I was gonna say something. Shit.
We were started off with when did you start sensing spirituality?
Yeah, I remember I questioned God, and then once I didn't get an answer, I was definitely just like, whatever. And I didn't think about it for a while. And then as you get older, obviously, you just start thinking about everything. And then you go into each religion and you're like, okay, well, what's their answer? And then each religion's answer is so different. And it's like, they're all fantastically wrong because they're all written by human beings, you know? And it's probably whenever I watched The Cosmos, that made me think of like the whole universe is
And that was
fucking
like
huge.
probably 16, 17.
Mm-hmm. And then the Cosmos also makes you realize how smart the universe is. It's like, okay, the universe is massive, okay? There's trillions of planets that exist that are probably just like Earth already. All throughout every star you see has a planet. So every time you look up in the sky and you see a star, they have a planet, at least one. And there's probably many more than one. I mean, we have like 8. And one of them is habitable that we know of. Who even knows? There might be life somewhere else in our solar system we don't even know about. And the cosmos just takes everything and zooms it all out. It's like, here's the universe at the largest scale possible. If you zoom out and you look at our solar system, You know, it's a speck. It's nothing. And then
We're not the center of it.
Yep. And then the coolest part of it was that they would go down to the smallest part too. And they'd be like, okay, well, this is an atom. And then they show you what an atom looks like. And then I remember I made the connection in my head. I was like, well, atoms look a lot like stars. Like if you took the structure of like an atom or a molecule or something and you looked at it and the way they're all like patterned out, it looks like the stars in the sky. And then you're like, so now as I get older, all I want to do is make those connections of like things that are super small that are the exact same thing as the massive large version. And then it's all, everything in between is like the intelligence of the universe. You know what I mean? So
Which is God.
Which is God, basically the same thing. And yeah, so like now I see God as just like this general like intelligence that through time things just slowly work their way out to where it all makes sense. And like obviously we have trillions of atoms inside of our body just constantly moving. Everything is just always flowing around, and there's a lot of ways to die. Like if you think of all the atoms in our body, how easily it could happen that something just goes wrong and you get a tumor somewhere. That's like the most basic thing. I mean, there's literally trillions of things that could happen that's wrong in your body. And every day we're constantly manipulating our body with our mind and our food. So we're constantly eating this food that changes the structure of our body, and then we're thinking, which is all the time changing the structure of our body too.
Right?
Yeah. So we sit here and we're always like wondering like what is God? I think God is just that it's like that general intelligence of the world. Like if I got corona, I think that I would be fine because I trust the intelligence of my body that it would go through COVID fine. You know what I mean? I have faith that if a bomb went off on Earth, there will be a certain subset of human beings that have a genetic predisposition to be able to handle large amounts of radiation, and they'll survive.
The species, yeah.
So like the way I see intelligence is accounting for every possible scenario that can ever exist, which is life. You take all these human beings, 8 billion humans, every single person is 99.9% similar, but completely different. And then whenever something happens, if like just the smallest subset of that 8 billion can survive, then we all survive, technically, because we'll just grow through that one thing. So the intelligence of life is to basically get as much shit as you fucking can, throw it all at the wall, and then hopefully 2 of them will stick. And then those 2 that stick, they gather as much shit as they can and they throw it at the next wall. You know what I mean? And then 2 stick from there. And then it's just like consistently always moving forward because we accounted for everything. You know what I mean? And we don't account for any of it because we can't control 8 billion lives. Something about life itself creates the diversity of what we live in on Earth, right? Like something smart about the way that molecules move about the universe created everything that we know as Earth, right? That is so weird. How can that happen? Like if the Big Bang is the thing that happened, if the Big Bang happened, let's say like everything was the size of a fist basically, and it expanded and everything blows up basically. Whenever the universe first created, it's only gases, and the gases are just floating around, and then through trillions of years, the gases slowly come together because every 2 objects have gravitational pull between them. So if there's just 2 little like oxygen atoms like floating around somewhere in space, they'll eventually come together if there were only 2. So the gases slowly come together and they form a star, right? Because a star is just a burning gases. I mean, I think it's just like burning hydrogen, I think. And then
remember, we know nothing.
We don't really know that much. I just know a lot of bullshit about like stupid random things.
In general, we know nothing.
So you take these stars and then they blow up and they create like iron or something like that, or some other molecule or some atom. And then those atoms just get spewed out into the universe. And then fast forward trillions more years probably, and then you get planets that can form around the stars because enough stars have blown up to create the things you need to put into an Earth. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So if you blow up enough stars and you have enough iron, then it can be put into a planet, and we need iron and all these other molecules that come from blowing up stars to have our planet be what it is. Like, you don't get Earth without stars being blown up. So every single atom and every single molecule inside of our body is literally trillions of years old. Every single thing that's on Earth is trillions of years old. The only atoms that like get blown up are the ones we fucking blow up in atomic bombs, which is like what, 3? Like what? Like, we probably blew up what? I mean, maybe like 500 atomic bombs ever. That's how many atoms that we've destroyed. 500.
I'm smiling because you're like, where did my spirituality start? And as you're saying, like, we are the same stuff as the stars. One of the books I used to always read to you when you were little is called We Are the Same Stuff as the Stars.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
and we
funny.
have it in the library over there.
Oh, that's
but
crazy.
It's funny because you just did a little synopsis of Cosmos.
Yeah,
but where
basically.
does intelligence fit into that?
That's what I mean, is like, to think that all these things happen naturally. That's the craziest part, is because it's like, wow, these things are so insanely complex, and they happen with no human touch. Mm-hmm. If humans touch it, it's wrong. We mess it up. The only thing that humans really do is manipulate something that the earth and the world has already created for us perfectly, and we manipulate it until we destroy something else. And then once we realize that we destroyed something else, then we say, oh, you can't manipulate this anymore because it ruins this thing. Mm-hmm. And then we're like, okay, well, now that we know that this ruins this, mm-hmm. what does this ruin? Mm-hmm. Then you ruin this thing, and then it ruins 10 other things. And it's like, the whole purpose of human beings is to basically destroy the intelligence of the universe. Because like, not destroy it. That's a bad. We try to manipulate.
That's a doomsday way of looking at humanity. I mean, obviously
we try to manipulate life as much as possible.
Yeah, we do.
But in that process, we end up destroying a lot of it. But at the same time, every decision that we make that is seen as bad or good, again, is not good or bad.
Exactly.
Because good or bad is only a thing that humans invented to make sure that we have a way to look back in time and say, hey, like, don't touch the line.
Yeah. So it circles back exactly to what we were saying to
Joy, shut up.
As individuals, because we were talking about as individuals, and now we're talking about humanity as a whole, which is all really the same thing, right? It's a consciousness of the individual, or a consciousness of the human species. But if we circle back to, did we learn from our mistakes? Did we learn from, like you said, we do something to this, it destroys that. We're like, okay, forget that. Now we destroy this. Which, I don't have such a doomsday kind of look at things as you do. I'm a little more optimistic about things. But and that's also not good or bad. It's also my ignorance about a lot of things. But I think it's exactly what we were saying. Did we learn? Did we learn enough? Are we learning enough to prevent the sixth extinction of humanity?
Yeah.
Which is what, Zach Bush talks about a lot. And so we're at this critical point in humanity where we have a decision to make. Are we going to learn from our mistakes, like I address with patients at the end of their life, like, no regrets, but we've got to learn from our mistakes and do better next time. Mm-hmm. We know more, we do better. But yeah, so we're at that point right now, I think. Yeah.
It is funny though, because no matter how much we prepare for it, we won't be. We can try.
You mean for the end of our species?
Yeah. We can try, and we can prevent it as much as possible by basically running away from the problems that we have, aka like going to Mars, which is how to run away from Earth. That's how you win.
Just destroy another planet.
But the thing is, no matter what, there probably will be life here. So it doesn't matter. We can plan for it all we want. But that's where God steps in, because it's like the intelligence of the universe will win even if we lose. Like, we could have all the humans die, but another species is alive, and they propagate for billions of years to create the next thing. So it's like, we could have been a lot, like, we could have had civilizations that were already very similar to human beings, you know, hundreds of millions of years ago, that we just don't know about at all, just because, you know?
Yeah.
So,
but because energy is not created or destroyed and consciousness is energy, we are part of that still.
Yeah.
It's not gone. It's somewhere in our consciousness. It's somewhere.
This is actually a funny little segue, but I always wonder, like, if vampires and, like, you know, like, superhuman type shit that we always talk about, like, what's it, like, witches, vampires, like, what if they actually did exist at one point in our humanity, like,
now we
50
just
million,
we bring it up from our subconscious.
Like 50 million years ago, and then it's just like stories passed down for so long that eventually it's just like we see them as like witches or vampires.
And I'm sure, you know, obviously we add on to those stories. Like, I don't know that, you know, but think about it. I mean, why were witches witches? Because they could do things that other people couldn't do, but so could Jesus, you know? And because he saw, I mean, this is just my version, and remember, I know nothing, but, you know, I picture Jesus as just this completely enlightened being that saw every single thing that he encountered as a soul, you know, without the personalities, the
basically any human word that you can put into it
any
is
human
wrong.
word that you can add to that soul basically was stripped away, and therefore, you know, he could heal. And then said, go forward and tell no one of this, because then you just negated it as soon as you told anyone, because then it's negated, because that can't happen, that isn't, you know. So I don't know.
That is funny. That's really important to not ever be happy about your wins like that, because it's like, I know with day trading, it's like, anytime I ever tell anyone, if I make like $150 a day, I'll tell someone, the next day I lose $250. The next day, it's like guaranteed. It's guaranteed. So that's why I don't like when people ask me how trading works.
I don't ask you anymore.
Because I don't want to tell them, because I know if I fucking say that I made money or lost money today, whatever I say, the opposite's going to happen tomorrow. So it's like, I have to be really careful and never be too happy about my wins. So it's like, and that's the same thing about life. Like, you can't just dwell on like your wins all the time. Like, you gotta just be like, yeah, I won, but like, I also just won. Like, I didn't really win. That's just how it happened. Like, you win, you lose. You shouldn't care about the like what happens in the meantime, you know.
But that's what you're doing with trading. You're trying to teach yourself to trade with no emotion, which is what I think is so unique about you, is to have no emotion attached at all, which is why I think
with the most emotional thing ever, money.
The most, money, and your ability to sustain yourself and to stay, you know, in this nice lifestyle that you have. You have no choice but to make money, but to be able to do that for hours a day and suppress your emotion is essentially why you're completely exhausted when you're done. You have to take a nap. And, you know, that could be perceived as, oh my gosh, seriously?
I know.
You have to take a nap, but I totally get that, to suppress all that. But then to find an outlet to express it so that it's not completely suppressed. I mean, we're talking about trading, but this pertains to life.
Everything.
You know, I always, every single day I'm talking to somebody about my patients, about not putting about how we go through life and we just, you know, we have something bad happens, we don't have time to feel it, we put a layer on top of it so we don't have to feel, and we just carry on with our roles and responsibilities, and then something else happens, put another layer and another and another and another. Over decades you're just suffocating under all these layers, and you know, that's the beauty of hospice, is just like kind of gently pulling back those layers so that you can feel what you didn't feel 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Just keep until, you know, it's what's left is what Jesus saw, you know. So it's kind of beautiful.
It is.
Might be a good place to stop.
Yeah. Since the dogs won't shut up. Like, damn.
They're having fun. It's so cute. They're actually playing.
I don't know what that. Yeah, I don't know what that is.
I'm not good. I'm not good with that.
Marley heard you talking. He's like, shit.
I know.
I want to take a nap now,
Look
bro.
at him. He's playing dead so that Joy doesn't destroy him.
Joy's just circling
Joy's like,
him. What
I
the
think
fuck?
He is dead. Is he dead? Joy's like, I have no idea how to handle this.
Like, what are you doing, bro?
Oh, that would be cute if Marley was still down.
Y'all
See,
good?
the problem with Joy is she's from the streets of Brazil. She has no idea how to play. She's been bullied her whole life till Colby rescued her.
Yeah.
Marley's had the complete opposite upbringing. Bred into a...
He's a legitimate...
He's on Joy's spot.
Oh, God.
No, turn it on Joy. Look at Joy. She's not happy right now.
Wow.
Oh my gosh, she's learning to share. Her ears are up.
If you guys notice this super good smooth camera, that's all Shimmy behind it.
Turn it on, Shimmy.
No, I didn't.
Yes.
So that's me and my mom.
Love you,
Kelly
Cole.
Warshall, MD. I love you. Gotta
Colby
say,
Warshall, existentialist. Love you too.
hope y'all enjoy our bullshit.
Remember, we know nothing.
Nope, nothing at all.